Hello people, and welcome to this unboxing of the new car I just got. It's a Hobao Hyper VS2 1/8 scale racer buggy, and this is the NITRO edition. Stands at NITRO 0.21 engine, yellow body, ready to run, blah blah blah. I never had, this is my very first NITRO engine car, and I don't know very much about NITRO cars, so this is going to be first tryout for me, and I hope to learn something, and maybe people that wondering maybe they're also going to get into NITRO can learn something from this video. So this new edition of this car, it's got some aluminium 70-75 parts. Yes, it's some new differential, let's say anti-leaking. That's very good. And some steering, new maybe, chassis, blah blah blah. Yes, and it got you can release the servos are mounted on a plate, and you can quick release them. You can see the image here, their engine, everything, but we don't want to spend too much time looking at the box. Here we have the specs, but just go at the internet and search for the car and you will find it, hobaoracing.com. So we'll just take a quick look on what we get there. There's an instruction manual with all the parts numbers, and let's see here. Since this is a NITRO engine, you have to break it in. That is the first you have to do. Don't go maximum speed at once, because the motor will not live that long. It wears a lot on the motor. So instruction manual here. Required transmitter, batteries for the transmitter, servos, receivers, battery pack in the car. Yes. I believe all this is included, maybe not batteries, but some tools, recommended tools, yes. And this instructions manual is, if it's the same I've seen on internet for downloading, it's just really the parts. It's not telling you a lot about the braking, but let's see here. Part numbers, part numbers, part numbers. It's of course good information when you have to repair the car. And here are the parts, and you also have options part there. You can change the we just call it pinion, but it's part of the clutch, and you have the pinion gear here, so you can change that of course, and you can change to some other springs, and yes. Parts numbers again. Exploded view, nice. Oh, setup, because this car has a lot of tuning options for the setup, but I'm not a racing guy. I like to race, but that's just special style racing, so I don't care that much about setup. As long as I got the car to handle like I like it, and get up to speed like as I like it. I'm not that very into tuning a lot. So here we have it. Yes, it says down here Hobao Racing Direct eShop, eShop.hobao racing.com. Some warning here. Yes, about I believe it's the battery to servos. Maybe it's a maximum voltage, looks like 6 volt for servos. Some stickers. And this is what you should look at. It's the specs for the engine. You can also download this from the internet, and it says how to break in the engine. I will not go into details of that now, but I have to read that and do that later. And if this is your first NITRO engine, it could be good to read all this stuff. Also, of course, use YouTube and see how people do it. Learn a lot there. Take note about the needles we have here. High speed, low speed, idle screw. The mid-range needle you don't usually have to touch at all. So it says the default positions are the factory positions for all the needles, and after break-in some suggestions to how you can do a bit of tuning. So this is a good start, and if you don't feel the car is getting up to the speed and behave as you want, you can start to tune it a bit more. And then we have something, this must be a antenna something, and we have some information about the transmitter. Yes, so that's the paper. All this you can download from the internet also, I believe. At least spare parts, exploding view, and the break-in of the engine. On the backside here you can see also exploded view of the engine. So if you have to take the engine apart or change some parts, you can use this. And also part numbers for every part. That's good. Well, alright, let's take a look at the car now. I have very limited space in where I'm now. This is where I'm repairing the cars. So this is the transmitter. I have no experience with this one. I guess it takes 2 or 3 or 4 batteries, don't know. It feels good. It's foam on the wheel, feels good. And we have some adjustments there. But I'm not gonna use this transmitter because I'm gonna change the receiver and transmitter to what I usually use, which is this Spectrum. But I'm maybe gonna just start up the car, the electronics, to see how it's set with the throttle and brakes and fail-safe and that sort of things. I just want to know how they are set up from factory before I change the receiver and transmitter. So this we put away. There we have the included wheels. They look okay. I like the look, and not too big tags, what they call it. I believe this kind of tires are good for asphalt, also on street racing, but also on some racing tracks where the sand ground is quite solid. But I'm racing a lot on gravel and sand, so I need tires that got some larger tags here. But they look good, feels okay. So you're gonna have this in spare. Here we have some other parts. This is the air filter, the wing here, and this is the handle that you can use. This green one you can use when you pull the pull start. It looks like some tools there, and something I don't know what this, and a body clip. And yes. Right. Then we have the car. Just have to remove this clips here. Let's see if I can get it. Right, so this is the car. Remove the strips. I like the color of this car. Yellow, sort of racing color. You see there's some holes there that to get air into the car, and this is where the cooler is sticking up, of course. And here I guess you have access to the fuel tank. Looks good. Why did I buy this and not another NITRO car or another electric car? Well, I got electric cars. I got Arma Notorious here and here Creighton. Of course I could bought the Typhon, but I wanted something different. And from since I was a small boy back in the 80s, I remember I looked in a lot of RC magazines like the Graupner and Tamiya magazines, and always the NITRO cars was the really great cars, was the best cars at that time in the 80s. So I always wanted a real NITRO fuel engine. So that's why I did buy this car. Also this model, because it got some, for me, looking very good design and parts there. You can see, if I have something to point with here, you can see here it's got hingpin blocks that looks solid, not some plastic, cheap plastic. Got one there, one here also, and one here in the rear front. And the bumper is not much to talk about, but I'm maybe gonna mount the RPM bumper here. And it's got good looking shocks. The towers are in aluminium 7075. And I like this pivot ball steering. I'm used to that from my Arma cars. I know some people don't like it. Maybe for racers, I'm not sure if this is the best or not. But I like it. It's easy to maintain, and the steering is very stable. Easy to drive the car straight in line. Here we have the quick release for the servos. You just have to unscrew this screw here, this screw there, and then you just lift it up. You see there's some plastic mount here, so just press on them, and I believe you can just yes, lift it up. Here we have the battery box. This must be the receiver box. This is of course where we have the air filter, and this servo is for steering, of course. Here you can see that. Yes, and this servo is for the throttle. I believe this is this one link. But it goes to the carb of the NITRO engine, and then we have this link is the brake. You can see brake pads there, and you have the center diff there, and of course you have a diff in the front and a diff in the rear. So here we can mount the wing. it's included in this one. It's also a quick release for the body shell. Let's look if I can see how that works. Like that. So you're only using one clip. And that is very nice, I think. One clip here, then take that off, and you just drag the body shell off like that. It feels okay. The body shell, well, since I'm a basher, I would really like it a bit thicker, but I believe I can take some flexi tape or something on the inside to get it a bit more stiff, maybe. And I will take also something here, since you have this quick mount there. Let's turn around the car. Yes, take off this plastic here. So this is the cooler, and this is the exhaust pipe, they call it, and here we have the puller. And this, I've seen some people just use this. You get well, sort of a okay grip here, but if you don't, if you think this is too small, you use this big green one and put this little in here, and you get a much bigger handle. I will just try to use this and see if it works. So here we have the fuel tank. The fuel goes into the carb here. I see it's reading 13T. It's a 13 pinion here on this motor. Yeah, so the fuel goes into the carb here and the air goes in there. And you can tune the mixture of the fuel and air with using these needles here. This is the high-speed needle. This is the low-speed needle, I believe. This is the idle screw on the side there. Maybe I should get the flashlight there. Can you see it now? There we have the idle screw. And this is the mid-speed needle. And in the instruction manual it says you should not tune this one, not touch this one. Only when you tune in the car, just use the high-speed needle, low-speed needle on the other side, and idle screw. Also, I'm not going to do it now, but you can remove the air filter here and look into the carb here, and you can see the idle gap, and that should be around 1 millimeter. That you set with the idle screw, I believe. But if you look at YouTube, you'll see many users suggest a bit smaller idle gap. Some says 0.5 millimeters. But you can try. You could start with this stock setup, especially when you are going to break in the car. But maybe later you want to close the idle gap a bit. You try about 0.7 or 0.5. But we just have to see how this engine behaves with that kind of setup. I believe the stock is 1 millimeter idle gap. Okay, so we have the fuel in the tank. The fuel goes into the carb here, and you get air here, and this mix inside the engine and compress, and you have a glow plug that you put down here. I see it's not coming with a glow plug, at least not installed. Maybe there could be something in the package, I don't know, but I've bought a few glow plugs, so I have that. And the glow plug will ignition the mixture of fuel and air and get the piston to move down. And then you have this, it's not called the link, I don't remember what it's called, but you have the moving parts in here, and of course we get the pinion to turn around, and that goes to the spur gear here on the center diff, and you'll get the transmission both there in the rear and in the front, so it's 4-wheel transmission. And here you have the flywheel, I think they call it, and it's move easy now. That's because the piston is at the bottom. I could try to, I feel the resistance now, that's when the piston goes up in the cylinder. And here you have the spur, so I can check the mesh, they call it. That's the distance between the spur gear and the pinion. And it feels good. You should hear a little clicking sound when you do this. It should move a little bit freely. They say like a sheet of paper. So that's the distance between the spur gear and the pinion. I could now just break it in as it is and use it as it is. The only thing I would suggest is to just check the screws, and especially the 4 mounting screws for the engine, that they are not loose or something. Is it more to say here? It looks good. One thing, you can see this. These are the shock tower support that goes there from the rear shock tower to the chassis, and in front you have one from the front part to the chassis. They are in plastic. I believe they hold good, but I've found some on the internet that I can upgrade to. So I will do that. Should we get some wheels on this car? Let's look here. I believe I'm gonna try these wheels first. This is Louise wheels. Some people say they are not very solid, but since I'm not gonna use this for very hard bashing, I'm maybe gonna try these wheels first. But I also have Proline Badlands. So if these Louise wheels break too easy, I will just fast change to these Badlands. The included wheels I will use if I'm more gonna drive on street style. So we could try to get these wheels on the car. It's 70mm hex here. This is just so you get a better look on how the car looks assembled. Where did I lay the wheels? There we have it. I've ordered also some spare parts, so we will have a look at them also. I've seen some videos on YouTube that says that the pivot balls don't pop out that easy on these cars, that these steering blocks working good. That's nice to hear. I've not seen an option to upgrade to aluminium front steering blocks. but I got some for the rear hubs. Alright, so now we have the Louise wheels on this car. Just looking at the steering here. Looks good. I just of course have to set up the steering a little bit. Camber and toe, what they call it. Damping looks very good. It's not fast rebounding. You also have this sway bar, both in the rear and in the front, and you can see you can mount the shocks here in different positions. You have one more here in the down and here in the up side of the tower. You have a lot of different locations you can use. You also have this is called droop screws, both in the front and in the rear. That's very good. Droop screws there, yes. And you can see also some tuning options here in the rear. Also here on the hubs, rear hubs, you have tuning options to change the positions a bit. And of course you can adjust the links that goes out. It looks very solid, I must say. The rear links are very beefy. I'm not sure if it must be 6mm or so, even more. Looks very beefy. Not so beefy dog bones or what I call it, but I guess it's alright. Same in the rear. What I'm maybe going to do here is mount a RPM bumper in the front. Since I'm just bashing, I want a bit more protection in the front there. The wing mount feels a bit stiff, but that's like all these cars have. Maybe I want a bit more flexible rear wing mount so it don't break that easy. I got a friend who can maybe make that for me, 3D print something that's more flexible. So there we have the car. I can open this so you can get a quick look. This is of course the wing that you mount there. Here we have the tools. I'm not really sure what this is for. I think I've seen it before, but I can't remember. Oh, of course it's for mounting the rear wing. Just the screws and the spacer, what they call it. And there you have the body clip. Alright. This looks like just some cable holders or something. Okay, so here we have the car now. Get this right. So this, and just set it there. So there is more the look of the car with wheels and rear wing. Could maybe sit a bit higher. I was wondering if the stock springs was a bit soft. Not for racing. I believe if you're racing on street or on a solid ground, this setup I believe could be okay, but for bashing maybe I would have a bit lift the car a bit. Of course you can just turn this down to get a bit more higher ground clearance both in the rear and the front, but also when you drive the car usually lifts a bit, especially in the front, but I will look at that later. So let's look at other stuff I got for this car. As I said, I'm going to use my Spectrum DX5C transmitter. And I'm just using the Spectrum SR215. That's one of the cheapest DSMR receiver Spectrum have. It's just a 2-channel. But it's good range and good response. So I've installed this in the car. So I have all my cars on this transmitter. I also, you must have a NITRO fuel. This is just 1 liter bottle. I believe the tank is 0.125 liters. And I know the break-in says you have to run the car on idle for, is it 3 or 4 tanks or something, and then you just drive the cars very easy in figure 8 usually, and 1 or 2 more tanks, and then after that you can start to give more speed and tune the car to get up to more speed. This is 20% NITRO, I believe. Here in Norway where I live, it's a bit cold, so before you start the engine, and for the first time or every time really, you should preheat the engine some. You could use a heat gun. I bought this Sky RC engine heater. So with this, you connect this to a LiPo battery, and you just I'm not sure if this is part of the, just let it be, but you put this over the cooler and connect it to a LiPo battery, and this will heat the engine up. Let's see. Input voltage is 12 volt, so you can use a 3S LiPo battery. I believe heating time around 10 minutes, it says. It's also got low voltage cutoff, that's good. I believe I read somewhere that this can heat the engine up to, was it 70 or 80 degrees, something like that. So that is good to have, especially when you're driving out in the field and you can just take 10 minutes to heat up the engine before you drive. Just remember to take with you a battery. Should we see at the other stuff I got here? Let's see. Yes, since this is my first NITRO car, I also have to get some other stuff. I got this heat measure, because when you drive a NITRO engine, you should preheat it to about 70, 80 or maybe 90 degrees Celsius before you start it. So you just measure the heat down in this cooler. Let's see now what it is. 13.9, almost 14 degrees Celsius. That's of course too low. If you don't preheat it, the motor will wear out more fast, because the piston is moving up in the cylinder and it's very tight, especially when it's cold. So then it will be a lot of resistance and the motor could get very hot. But the problem is the resistance, because the part will wear out faster, so the motor will not last that long. and when the parts wear out, you will get a lot of free movements. So the piston is not so tight in the cylinder, and you will not get the good high compression that give the power to the engine. So you will typically see that you are losing power, and maybe you are losing high speed. I'm not sure about that, but they say so. So we just have to take some care of this and try to do what they suggest and preheat the engine a bit, especially when here in Norway now and down to 10 and maybe also down to 0 degrees Celsius. Then I got two of these. This is the Sunpado 2400 milliamps 5C batteries. This is for the car to the servos, because you have to have some batteries in the cars also, and that is for the servos, the steering and the throttle and brake. The engine is not using batteries, of course. That is using fuel, and it has a glow plug, so it's keeping the car going. And I also bought this starter pack, HOP Racing NITRO starter pack, and here you have the glow igniter that you set down on the glow plug when you start the car. This is just the charger for that one. And then we have after run oil. After you run the car, you just can unscrew the glow plug and put a few drops of this inside the engine and pull the pull starter a few times, so you get it around in the engine. This is so the engine will keep in good shape, and you don't get what we call the rust, is a corrosion in the engine. So that's something they should guess. I just bought some cables, so I'm not sure what plug the car have inside, so I have to check to connect the batteries, and some silicone tube. And this is for the air filter oil. That's also something you use. That's so the smallest particles will also be stopped in the air filter. And this is just the tool for the glow plug. And here we have, I bought two glow plugs, and this car is using what they call turbo glow plugs. They got, you can see I'm not sure if you can see this, but on the end of the glow plug, it's a bit tapered. That's the turbo plug. And this here is the RP7. It should be medium hot glow plugs, they say. Because I read somewhere, I don't remember where, that Hobao suggests to use medium hot glow plugs with this engine. So I will try that. I have no idea. This is my first NITRO car, so don't blame me if I say anything wrong. Use YouTube and search for more information. I'm just showing you how my experience with my first NITRO car will turn out. And in a later video I will show you when I break in the car, if I got the car to start, and what parts I changed, and my experience with what parts that holds on good and what parts maybe break. But let's see at other stuff that I bought. I got some spare parts. This is the wing mount. From my experience with Arma success cars, the wing mount is not holding up very good, so I just bought one for spare. Maybe I'm later going to get a friend of me to make me some more flexible, so I maybe going to give him this one and ask if he can try to make some 3D print. Spare filters, air filters. When you're driven, they say, I heard or read somewhere that for about 30 minutes you can drive with the air filter. A lot depending on the conditions, and if you're driving and if it's a lot of dirt, and that's on where you're driving. And you get home, you just wash these air filters in water and a little bit soap, and you let them dry, and then you put on some air filter oil. So I have some of them in spare. What else we got here? This is the clutch shoes. The motor here got the clutch, so when you give throttle, the clutch will grip on and the car start moving. I just bought a few of the parts that people say they will wear out sooner or later when driving a NITRO engine. So the clutch shoes is something that will wear out sooner or later. So I got one set of them. I believe you can upgrade to other kind of shoes, also some in aluminium or something. And other parts that wear out are the brakes, so I got 2 sets of these, I believe. And other parts that from my experience, we often break when we're bashing is the shock ends. So I bought this set. This is the shock nylon set, Hobao, and you got most of the part that usually breaks here, so that's very nice. And here's the RPM bumper. This is really for Arma, 6S, Creighton, blah 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 cars. So I'm gonna try to mount this in the front here. So I got the bigger bumper in the front. Of course the holes here will not fit, so you have to drill new holes and make it fit. It don't matter for me if it don't look that pretty, just as it does its job and protect the car. Here are some steering link N look like. Also parts that you break. Here we have the brake disc. The other set of the brake pads. And this is maybe turnbuckles. Yes, it says so. Here we have this must be the upper front arm, yes. Because that's also some parts that you usually break. That's the lower front arms, the upper front arms, or the rear arms. So I got the set of these, and this is the rear lower. This is rear upper arm plastic rod end. More turnbuckles. This is the hang pin. And this is good to have. I don't remember, this must be the upper hang pins. Yes, so it's and here we have the pivot ball front steering hubs. This is also good to have in spare, one set. Here we have the hang pins, the lower hang pins. They are used both in the front and the rear. The other hang pins I did show you are only for the upper front. So they're good to have, and this is the front lower arms. So now I have a complete set of arms, both for the front and rear. This is most stuff here. And these are the ball bearings. And these are the bearings that goes on the outside for both the front and the rear. They usually, what I see break most often, you can't see them now, it's the ones here, just on the inside of the wheel. Usually, when I'm breaking bearings, these are the ones that breaks. So I just bought 4 of these, so I have some in spare. No, that was all I believe. But I have some other parts also. I bought a set of springs. And I believe these springs should be more stiff, but I'm not sure. When I look at the springs stock springs, they really look a bit more thicker. I have to check that out later. But these are the options parts, springs for both the front and rear. And I bought 2 sets of the rear shock springs, because if the springs in the front feels a bit too weak, I'll just use the rear springs also in the front. And here at last we have some metal parts, aluminium upgrades. And this I bought from, was it AliExpress, or I believe it was from AliExpress or Banggood, I'm not sure. So let's see here. These are the rear and front shock tower support in aluminium. So one for the rear and one for the front. You can see here this is plastic, this is plastic, so this is an upgrade. Not expensive at all, you get them at AliExpress. And this is hingpin blocks. I don't remember, I believe it's for the rear, this one. So a bit more beefier, I believe. Maybe it's a set of rear hingpin blocks, but the stock one looks very beefy and good. The rear maybe a bit thinner, but I believe I maybe just gonna use the car as it is and maybe use this later if I need it. Not expensive, also from AliExpress. And here we have, this is aluminium hubs, rear hubs, also from AliExpress, and not too expensive. Hobao sells also these ones, a bit more expensive, but I believe the Hobao parts could also be stronger. But I just want to try these. They were not expensive, and see how they hold up. So this will go in the rear. So the upgrades I want to do from the start, I want to change these aluminium rear hubs and this support here in aluminium. I will use the Louise wheels, and I will change to a new receiver so I can use my Spectrum DX5C transmitter. That's really all I will try. I'm not sure if I'm gonna change to other springs. I'll just see how the car behaves, and I can tune a bit here with just screwing this down and get it a bit more stiff. And then I will see how the servo is working, the braking is working, and set up the brakes and the throttle link here so it works as it should. And we will see how it goes. So that was really all for this time. I will give you some good links that I've found on to good YouTube videos. There's a lot of tips for NITRO tuning and NITRO cars, setting up the throttle and brakes and everything, and also the failsafe. You have to remember that this NITRO car engine, if the batteries unplug or something happens, the engine will just keep moving. So the car could go to that, what they called it, it's a runaway, when the engine just keep going and you have no steering and no chance to stop the car. But if it's just the connection between the transmitter and the receiver that breaks, you maybe drop this or the batteries fall out or something, then you can set up the receiver to failsafe, and that usually that it will hit the brakes maximum. So that you can set up, and that you can set up with this Spectrum receiver. There's also videos on the YouTube that show that. So that I will set up, of course. And there's also a trick to sort of get the car to stop. If you totally the electronics in the car stop to work, you can mount a rubber band between the carb here, and the servo horn here. So if you mount the rubber band here, what will happen if the electronics stop to work? It will maybe drag the servo horn all the way in, so it closes the carb, and then the motor will just go on idle. It will not brake, so the car would still just run away, but you would not have a car that was going on full throttle or whatever speed you had when the accident happened. So that's also something I'm gonna look a bit into. Yes, so that was enough for this video. Sorry for my small room here. I don't got this big space. In the next video, I believe maybe I'm gonna show you when I have installed the hubs and set up everything, the electronics, and do a test of the braking and throttle, and maybe I also looked at the failsafe. So maybe I'm gonna show that also. And after that, I'm gonna break in the engine. I just have to wait the weather get a bit hotter. So that's all for this video. My first NITRO car, and make NITRO great again, as they say. So take care. Thanks.